We welcome everyone joining us today from around the world for the fourth webinar in our Multiverse webinar series. Today's webinar is on the Multiverse Transmitter. I'm Harrison Hohnholt of City Theatrical, and I'll be your presenter today. Let's first take a look at our full webinar series to give you an idea of what we've been reviewing and what you can learn. Our webinars are brief, 20 to 30 minutes, but filled with both general information about wireless DMX and specific information about our individual products. Our first webinar was an introduction to the 11 breakthrough technologies that make Multiverse different than any other wireless DMX in the world. In our second webinar on Multiverse Show Baby, besides describing setting up a basic point-to-point broadcast system, we discussed the radio technology that we use, frequency hopping spread spectrum. We also introduced the concept of show IDs and described basic best practices for wireless DMX and gave an introduction to RDM and City Theatrical's DMXcat. In our third webinar on Multiverse Node, we taught how to set up a simple point-to-point broadcast system. In addition, we described the use of the 900 MHz band and working with specialized antennas for situations where the default omnidirectional antenna is not the best choice. We also described how to designate the multiverse node to be a receiver on a specific universe of a multi-universe broadcast. And we again explored the use of RDM and DMXcat in setting up a system. If you have not watched those webinars, please do, since they serve as the foundation and background to today's webinar on Multiverse Transmitter. Today's webinar is the fourth in a series of 6 webinars on Multiverse Wireless DMX, and we'll go deep into the Multiverse Transmitter, which contains 4 different radios and which can broadcast as many as 10 universes from one transmitter. In this webinar, we'll show you how to set up a complex multiple universe broadcast. On Thursday, June 4th, we'll concentrate on wireless dimming with our ColorFlex 5 by 2.5 amp, 900 MHz and 2.4 GHz multiverse dimmer, as well as teach you about another even smaller dimmer for props and costumes, our newest ColorFlex 2 by 2.5 amp, 2.4 GHz multiverse dimmer. Both of these dimmers are made in the USA here in our New Jersey factory. They're great for controlling LED tape and feature the smoothest dimming we have ever offered. And on Thursday, June 11th, we'll show you our multiverse receiver card, which allows anyone, whether they are an electrician, prop builder, tinkerer, or inventor, to implement a tiny multiverse receiver into any DMX device. If you happen to miss any of these webinars, don't worry, they'll live on as recordings on the multiverse pages on our website and as YouTube videos. If you're new to wireless DMX or want to reinforce your fundamentals, you can find lots of helpful information on the Downloads tab of all of the multiverse pages of our website, including manuals, quick start guides, case studies, and white papers. You may want to start with our white papers, what you need to know about wireless DMX, and how advances in wireless DMX will change the way we do lighting. These 2 white papers will give you a good baseline understanding of wireless DMX technology. If you have any questions today, please type them into the Q&A box at the top of your screen. You may need to click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to open that Q&A box. Be sure to address your questions to all panelists, which enables me to see them. Now it is time for our swag giveaway. One listener will earn a new City Theatrical t-shirt just for signing up for the webinar today. We'll reach into the fistbowl and pick out a name, and it is Megan Flanagan. Congratulations, Megan. We will contact you by email and make the arrangements to get you your shirt. We have a lot to go through today, so let's get started. This is the Multiverse Wireless DMX RDM family of products. Today, we are going to be looking at the Multiverse Transmitter, which you can see on the right. The Multiverse Transmitter opens a new world in wireless DMX and RDM. Its Ethernet input allows it to take in streaming ACN or ArtNet and to transmit between 8 and 10 user-selectable universes of DMX and RDM, depending on the multiverse transmitter used, with the ability to use less radio energy than a present-day single-universe wireless DMX transmitter. Let's clarify the 3 different models of multiverse transmitter. Part number 5910 has one 2.4 GHz radio and one 900 MHz radio, allowing you to transmit up to 9 universes, 5 on 2.4 GHz and 4 on 900 MHz simultaneously. This model is for use only in North America. Part number 5911 has two 2.4 gigahertz radios, allowing you to transmit up to 10 universes. The 2.4 gigahertz unlicensed band is available in much of the world. Part number 5912 has two 900 megahertz radios, which allows you to transmit up to 8 universes. This model is for use only in North America. Today I'll be setting up and describing the 5910, the dual band model, but the setup and use of all three models is the same. In our previous webinars on Multiverse Showbaby and Multiverse Node, we described their ability to communicate with older devices speaking our Show DMX Neo language, as well as with multiverse devices. Those two products help to bridge the gap between our past products and our present and future products. Multiverse Transmitter speaks only the multiverse language and represents the future of wireless DMX. All multiverse transmitters have 4 radios, 2 broadcast radios able to transmit wireless DMX simultaneously, a Bluetooth radio for connection to a smartphone, and a Wi-Fi radio for communication with Wi-Fi based lighting controllers. This gives users the ability to communicate with the Multiverse Transmitter from City Theatrical's multi-award-winning DMXcat app on the user's smartphone. That gives the user smartphone control of any lighting fixture that's part of the multiverse setup, whether it is a lighting fixture with a multiverse module inside, a lighting fixture receiving its data from a multiverse node, or any wired fixture downstream of those devices. The Wi-Fi radio allows users to control their lighting system with programs like Luminaire. We've learned a lot so far in this webinar series, and it's time to take all of that knowledge and apply it to planning and setting up a multiple universe broadcast. To begin planning your system, we'll ask some questions, and these questions will help us understand how we will set up our multiverse transmitter. How many universes will you broadcast from each transmitter? This will influence the show ID that you choose. Exactly which universes will you broadcast? You'll need to know this to configure your transmitter. What is the status of the spectrum around you? This will influence your choice of radio frequencies on which to broadcast, which portion of the chosen band on which to broadcast, and even which model of multiverse transmitter to choose. What is the approximate distance between your multiverse transmitter and your multiverse nodes? This will influence the show ID that you choose. Is your show's queuing relatively simple, such as conventional or LED fixtures and moving lights? Or do you have direct view LED chases? This will influence the show ID you choose. Are specialized antennas needed? Panel and Yagi antennas can help to overcome challenges related to fidelity or distance while keeping unneeded radio energy away from other gear on the show. In our webinar on Multiverse Node, we touched very briefly on the Multiverse radio's data rate, and we'll go deeper today since this is an important concept in the setup of the transmitter. The Multiverse radio's data rate influences broadcast factors such as fidelity, transmission distance, and the number of universes that can be sent, and this in turn directly influences our choice of show ID. In this chart, we can see that the most demanding wireless DMX challenges, such as direct view LED chases, require shorter broadcast distances and fewer universes broadcast per multiverse radio than less demanding shows do. Less demanding shows would be described as most shows with moving lights, LEDs, and conventional dimmers. Let's see how that information affects how we choose our show ID. We'll choose a show ID for each radio in today's webinar. We'll be working with a 5910 multiverse transmitter with both a 2.4 gigahertz and a 900 megahertz radio. The setup is very similar for 5911, which contains two 2.4 gigahertz radios, or 5912, which contains two 900 megahertz radios. Let's say we need a full 9 universe broadcast, and our show is typical moving lights and LEDs with a few conventional dimmers. Our broadcast range is outdoors and is about 200 feet. We would classify this as a less demanding show, and the chart on the left shows our needs fall within the capabilities of the system. Looking at the chart on the right, we now need to pick a data rate that will give us 9 universes. Choosing a data rate of 3 on both radios gives us 4 universes in the 900 megahertz area and 5 universes in the 2.4 gigahertz area, and we have sufficient broadcast distance. That data rate of 3 will become part of our show ID, such as 93 blank 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 and 243 blank blank. Next, we will consider where in the band we want to place our broadcast. Remember, this is one of the advantages of the show ID system. We believe it's always best to have the ability to easily direct your broadcast to the area of the spectrum of your choosing. Our objective is always to achieve the highest level of fidelity possible while using the least amount of disruptive radio energy. That has always been City Theatrical's philosophy of wireless DMX. We now want to decide exactly where in our broadcast band to place our broadcast. The method professionals use to decide this is a site survey, and it requires some additional specialized equipment called a spectrum analyzer. Popular examples are Y-Spy and RF Explorer. Spectrum analyzers allow you to see what is normally invisible and help you to direct your broadcast to less crowded areas of the spectrum. Here's a view of the 2.4 GHz spectrum from a Manhattan TV studio. It's a crowded radio environment, but we can see there is less activity in the upper end of the spectrum, and we want to direct our broadcast there. Without a way of visualizing this, our challenge would be a lot harder. What if we didn't have a spectrum analyzer? There are a few other simple methods of increasing the probability of a good broadcast. There are many free Wi-Fi scanner apps that will tell you what Wi-Fi networks are around you. You may have this built into your smartphone already. DMXcat has this ability in the Android version as shown here. Even if you have no analyzer, you can still ask your colleagues in other departments if they're using radio gear in the 2.4 GHz band, and if so, which area of the band they are broadcasting in. The more information and visibility, the better, and any information is better than none. Remember, hope is not a strategy. This is a busy show in the heart of Broadway, but we can see that the upper end of the spectrum is less crowded, and that is where we would place our broadcast. Remember, in selecting your show ID, we can direct our broadcast to that area of the spectrum. Here's how we do that. Here's our show ID chart again. If we wanted to direct our broadcast to the upper end of the band, we would choose 3 as a digit for band in the show ID. For hopping pattern, we can use 0. We only change the hopping pattern if we have 2 radios on the same show ID, which might be possible on a very large system. Varying the hopping pattern offsets the sequence of frequency hops to minimize interference. So the show IDs have been developed to meet the needs of our broadcast today are 9330 for the 900 megahertz radio and 24330 for the 2.4 gigahertz radio. We'll also set a show key for each radio. The show key is an optional 3-digit extension of the show ID to prevent inadvertent interference from any other multiverse system in the area set on the same show ID. That required a bit of planning and thinking about our show, similar to what we do in planning, hanging, and patching the lighting fixtures in our show. Good planning and paperwork are always a plus. To begin to do our actual setup in the Multiverse Transmitter, we'll also need to know which 9 universes we will be broadcasting. For today's webinar, we'll say we have placed all wireless DMX on our production in universes 11 through 19. This slide shows what our broadcast plan might look like for this show. It reinforces the 3 key elements that must match between all transmitters and receivers: show ID, show key, and universe. With this information, we now have everything we need to begin setting up our multiverse transmitter, and then our multiverse nodes. We spent time in 2 previous webinars discussing RDM and City Theatrical's DMXcat multifunction test tool. You may also have noticed that there is no actual user interface built into Multiverse Transmitter. There are no buttons or screens on it for making settings. Instead, we build a DMXcat into every transmitter. You'll only need to download the free app from the Play Store or App Store, and you're ready to go. This allows remote setting of multiverse functions from your phone, as well as a more detailed user interface than is possible when the screen is on the unit itself. These screenshots are from my Android phone. If you have an iPhone, they will look slightly different. Since the Multiverse Transmitter has a DMXcat built in, you can connect to it just the way you normally would connect to a DMXcat dongle. Just choose the serial number of your transmitter on the DMXcat screen and connect. When connected, you'll see the transmitter icon in the center of your screen. This is where all of the setup for the Multiverse Transmitter will happen. You can set show IDs, set the universes to be transmitted, name your universe outputs, adjust output power for your radios, and RDM into receivers and other fixtures downstream of the transmitter, and many other things. When I click on the transmitter icon, it takes me to this main screen. It shows me what show IDs are selected for each of the two radios, and what universes are attached to each show ID. The Multiverse Transmitter's default show IDs are 24250 and 9250, which are both adaptive hopping show IDs. Each supports 2 universes, so a total of 4 universes are shown here. If you're doing a show of 4 universes or less, these default settings may be fine for you. But we have a large 9-universe show to set up, and we'll need to change some settings for our show. Clicking on the pull-down menu on the upper right of the screen will allow us to change the show ID and show key of each of the 2 radios. I can type in 24330 for radio A, then select radio B and type in 9330. I'll also type in a show key for radios A and B. I'll use 123 for radio A and 456 for radio B. The screen then reconfigures to show 9 universes available. Universes 1 and 2 are still the first 2 universes on the 2.4 GHz radio, and universes 3 and 4 are still the first 2 universes on the 900 MHz radio. We'll now reconfigure those universes for our show. I just click on the universe number and type in my new universe number. Here's my show fully configured on my transmitter. Now let's take a look at the other information and settings that we can see in our DMXcat app. On the basic info screen, we can rename our transmitter to something more specific to our show if we want to. All device label screens are user editable, and since you are working from your smartphone, you have a full keyboard to work with. The product info screen shows firmware versions and allows you to restore factory defaults. I've not shown you the connection with Multiverse nodes yet, as well as the connections to any RDM-enabled lighting fixtures downstream in the nodes. When I show you this a bit later in this webinar, we'll see that you can use your DMXcat not only for configuration of the Multiverse gear, but also for control of the fixtures connected to that system from your smartphone. This enables use of the smartphone for setup, troubleshooting, focusing, and other uses. Because anyone with a DMXcat can connect to your lighting system, we utilize a lock pin to prevent unauthorized use. The lock pin is set on this screen. Using the lock pin will prevent anyone who is not authorized from accessing the Multiverse Transmitter from the DMXcat app. Insert any pin number from 1 to 9999. Multiverse Transmitter accepts only Ethernet inputs, such as streaming ACN or ArtNet. The IP settings screens show the choices available for configuring these settings. The Subdevices menu allows deeper control of each of the 2 wireless DMX broadcast radios and enables you to set output power, change the antenna selection, and change settings on forward error correction and MDMX. The manufacturer settings screen allows a variety of settings for the Wi-Fi radio, as well as other information such as the transmitter's MAC address. That was a thorough trip through the Multiverse Transmitter and how we set it up for a 9-universe broadcast. At this point, if we configure some Multiverse nodes, we'll have a full working system. From the front screen of the node, or from RDM, we set the universe, show ID, and show key that we want. We'll assign 2 Multiverse nodes to each universe, giving us 18 nodes distributing our 9 universes. And that's our show, as we have set it up for this webinar. At this point, we're ready to hang and test our show. When the gear is all in place, plugged, ready to test and evaluate, a simple way to begin is to check the signal quality of each receiver by using RDM with your DMXcat. This will be easier if you have used RDM to change your editable device labels to give them descriptive or numerical names, such as stage left multiverse node or multiverse node number 1. Once you've found the node you want to check, go to the Sensors tab and you'll see the signal quality gauge like the one shown here. If your signal quality is in the green zone, you have a good connection. You can work your way through all 18 multiverse node receivers this way, using your DMXcat app from your smartphone. If you have evaluated your multiverse node receiver's signal quality and found any that are low, there are a number of things you can do to improve it. Review the wireless DMX best practices we have studied in previous webinars and follow them. These include improving the location of the transmitter and of the receiver in question. The location of the transmitter is particularly important since in our case, it is broadcasting to 18 receivers. Keep it as high as possible and in line of sight to the receivers as much as possible. We studied using specialized antennas in our Multiverse Node webinar, and panel antennas are a good solution for signal quality problems. In fact, our experience shows that nearly all signal quality or broadcast problems can be overcome by using specialized antennas, either panels for shorter broadcasts or Yagis for longer ones. In our case, we would put a panel antenna on the multiverse node receiver and focus it carefully to aim at the transmitter. We chose our show ID after doing a site survey with a frequency analyzer, but conditions can change, and maybe we weren't able to do a site survey and just took our best guess at the band portion of the show ID, which determines the area of the spectrum where you are directing your broadcast. You can change your show ID with RDM and try another one. Since the show ID applies to the radio, changing the show ID of the 2.4 gigahertz radio will affect 5 universes of our show and 10 nodes. This isn't a small job, but it may be necessary. And remember, conditions do change, so monitor your signal quality regularly. It's easy to do through RDM with your DMXcat app and only takes a minute. Let's take a look at some of our system looks like through RDM. So far, we've seen only the Multiverse Transmitter and Multiverse Node in RDM, but the DMXcat app gives us the ability to see and control any lighting fixture on our rig, whether it's RDM or not. On the left, labeled Step 1, is our main screen for our system, showing all of our universes. Note that Universe 11 has a device count of 4. I know from our hookup that that is 2 multiverse nodes, and we will soon see that each node has 1 lighting fixture connected to it. In Step 2, we have clicked on Universe 11 and can see our 2 multiverse nodes connected to it. I have changed the device labels to make them match our broadcast plan, Multiverse Node number 1 and Multiverse Node number 2. Note that the device count shows 1 for each node, meaning that there is 1 lighting fixture connected to each one. If we click the right-facing arrow, it will take us another level deeper all the way to the lighting fixture as we see in Step 3. In Step 3, we now see a Mac Aura with a device label of Mac Aura number 1 and set on DMX1. If we click the RDM symbol, we could look into the Mac Aura and change its DMX address or its personality, see its sensors, check its firmware version, and other useful items. By clicking on the DMX symbol, we can actually take control of the Mac Aura, as seen in Step 4. Since it is set in 25 channel mode, there are 4 full pages of controls. Here we are looking at page 1, with dimmer, strobe, 16-bit pan and tilt, and the control channel. One of the breakthrough features of the Multiverse Transmitter is that while it accepts streaming inputs from your lighting console for cueing and show situations, it can also be controlled through the DMXcat as you walk around the stage or studio for setup, troubleshooting, and focusing. Our setup today was pretty complex, and it's not the type of setup that you will face every day. Multiverse Transmitter also is often used for broadcasts of just a few universes. The setup and concepts are the same as we did today, and you can choose a show ID that has a data rate that optimizes distance and fidelity. If you have watched all of our webinars so far, you're well on your way to understanding multiverse technology and to becoming a wireless DMX expert. Our objective is always to produce a wireless DMX broadcast of the highest possible fidelity while using the least amount of disruptive radio energy. Multiverse's ability to do just that changes everything about how we can use wireless DMX on our lighting installations. That's about the end for today, but there's more we can help you learn, and I hope you join us for our upcoming webinars. In our next webinar, we'll study wireless dimming, and we'll set up some LED tape and dim it, like you would for scenery, props, or costumes. Then in our 6th webinar, we'll teach you how to set up and use our Multiverse receiver card, which allows you to quickly and easily make any DMX device wireless. For more information about anything you have seen, contact the City Theatrical offices in the US or UK, our website, citytheatrical.com, our Facebook page, where we are always posting information on new projects, or any of the great City Theatrical distributors around the world for more information on City Theatrical's products. We have some time for some questions, so let's take a look here. Okay, is the transmitter PoE? Yes, it is PoE. It's class 0 and draws half a watt. You can also power it via DC or AC as well. This next one. Is there a way to make the transmitting radios swappable? That's actually a good question. That'd be really neat. But on these, no, they are installed directly onto the circuit boards, so you're not able to pull them off and change them. So you would be stuck with the ones that you bought. But that's sort of why we have the dual band option, so you can swap between. Let's see. Will there be a max bandwidth for 900 megahertz? Well, so max bandwidth was initially invented to stay away from Wi-Fi in 2.4 gigahertz. And since there isn't really Wi-Fi in the 900 megahertz range, it wouldn't be necessary. So, let's see. How many transmitters can you have transmitting in one room? Okay, so this really depends on the model that you have, as well as some technicalities. So let's take the 900 megahertz spectrum. There's 90 optional show IDs. So with 2 radios in each device, we could do 45 in a room without any show ID overlap. Whether that will saturate the room or not, it's hard to tell. We've not actually tested that much. We do run 3 transmitters at 9 universes regularly in the shop with no problems, but we haven't done a concentrated test yet on what our maximum would be. Well, so that's all we have for the Q&A. I want to thank everyone who has joined us today for the webinar. And all the webinars will be posted on our website, as well as this one, and also on our YouTube page.